Hello and welcome. In this video, we'll be covering some platformer basics using Unreal Engine. In the lesson, we'll be able to create a platformer minigame with UE4 Side Scroller template, use basic landscape mode and tools, use a water plugin and water actor, use the Foliage Tool for adding background assets, create a moving static mesh in blueprints to include onComponent begin overlap function, and create a respawn volume function in blueprints. The asset pack that's being used, if you're interested, is called Advanced Village Pack, and it is free in the Epic Games Marketplace. To get started, we will be making a new game project with the side scroller template in Unreal. One of the things I want to show you first is a great way to get this game spiced up. As you see, it starts out with basic shapes, and if you hit play, you can see that the character can move and jump onto these platforms, which is the very basic version of a platformer. And we're essentially going to use this whole template to create a new scene. If we want to start getting a little dynamic, let's go ahead and exit game. I'm going to start by deleting all of the basic shapes as walls. Just shift and select everything here and get rid of that. And what I want to show you is landscape. So if you go to modes into landscape, I have the landscape. It shows you laying down here in a basic form. I chose the material of grass, so it will look like there's grass on the ground. And as we move forward, I do want to point out that you want to hit enable edit layer because we will be using a water actor on this landscape. Once you hit enable edit layer, just go ahead and hit create, and it creates this entire landscape ground for you. You can use the sculpt tools to make hills and things like that. But one thing I wanted to show you by using this landscape tool is how to add a water feature. So first, before you do water, you will want to go into your settings and plugins and search for water and ensure that your water plugin is enabled so that you'll be able to use the water actors. I'll get out of here. And to do that, you go back to the select mode and in actors, search for water. From here, you can pull a river water body in here. And as you can see, it's already got a river set up here. And this little white line is the spline in which you can use to maneuver the way that your river moves around. And you can straighten it out. It deforms the land as it moves, and it actually has depth to it. So this is a great way to get started with a scene without having a lot of assets available and ready to go. On that note, I have already set up a scene where, as you can see, I have the landscape and the river water actor here. And there's a lot of assets you see in the background, which really help create a scene as you're going to start playing the game. And one tool to use in order to do that without having to place all of those objects individually is to go into modes, click on foliage, and I do have some foliage types already added here, but let me show you how to do another one. Click add foliage type and go to static mesh foliage. And I'm going to call this one mushroom. And hit save. And yes, I do want to save this. I want to make this individual from what I have as my current static mesh. I'll click on it here, and under the mesh here, I can search for mushroom and find one of the mushroom types that I have in the asset pack. Once I have that added in, I am able to use this mushroom and paint it around. One thing I do want to change a little bit under painting is scale, so that all of the mushrooms aren't exactly the same size. I'm going to switch this to about a 0.7 to a max of 1 so that they can vary a bit in size. And if you want to paint a certain object or mesh, you can click on the box here and you see a little brush appear. If I zoom in, you can paint these mushrooms and it will give like a little bit of variation in their size, and I have it to where they're not going to be stacked up right next to each other. Another cool feature about foliage is you can click the box check to activate, for example, the flowers, and you have the mushroom activated, And to use that, you can place both of these actors at the same time. So this is a great way to fill your space in the background and make things look really nice without having to place everything individually. Okay, now let me just show you a few things that are in the scene that should look familiar to you from the side scroller template. The location where I have this dock, which I have created from some assets from the asset pack from bridge and fence pieces, and I just made a platform in the same location where in the side scroller template you will see those objects you were able to jump on and off of in the beginning of this tutorial. This boat is also just a static mesh from the asset pack, which I have added on top of the water here. And on the other side, that is our goal. We're going to make it all the way over to this other platform, which I created with the same assets from the other dock on the other side. So one of the first things I want to do is to go over how to get from this side to the other using this boat. So we're going to create a blueprint. I'm going to go back into select mode on this boat that will allow it to move from this location all the way to the other side after the player interacts with the boat. So that will be creating the static mesh in blueprints to have the on component begin overlap function that we mentioned previously. As you'll be able to see, I have actually already created this blueprint and I will show you what that looks like. But what I'm going to do is create a new one. So to do that, I will right click in my content browser, go to Blueprint Class, Actor, and this new blueprint, since I have a couple of boats here, I'm going to call it BP underscore boat 2. That way we can make sure that we know which one we're working with. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up and we'll get started on making this boat blueprint. And the first thing that we're going to want to do is add a component, and we're going to add a static mesh. And that static mesh we're going to use over here on the right side, you can see you have the ability to choose it. I'm going to go ahead and type in boat because this is the boat from the asset pack, and I'm going to use that boat as our static mesh. And next we want to add another component, which will be a box collider. So type in box and box collision. And for this box, I am actually going to move that up a little bit because what we're intending to do is for the player to interact with this box, we will need it to be above the boat and kind of cover the whole top of the boat here. So I'm just going to make it a little larger, wider, and longer so it fits the top of the boat for player collision. Another component we'll be adding is the Interp2 Movement. So add component Interp2 Movement. Get that set up here. And one more thing I actually added to my boat since my scene is a little dark is a light. So I search for light here. It'll take just a moment to adjust that. I have a rectangular light and I'm going to bring this up. Oops. For the light. And turn it so it's facing the boat a little bit and then move it back down and maybe away from here just so you can see the boat as it's moving. And I know that we'll be seeing the boat from this side, so I actually want to make that light work a little bit for the exterior of the boat too. And I can increase its height and its width. So the width will help cover Width and height will help cover a little bit more of the boat as the player is moving along. All right, so now that we have the light set, let's go ahead and hit compile and save. And we have all of our components available, and then we'll get a little bit more in depth with this blueprint. And as we just mentioned, we do want our player to collide with the box. Let's go over to our event graph. We don't need any of this stuff. I'm going to take that out. So let's click on the box component. And for that, we want to scroll all the way down in the box component here. And you can see in events, this is where we want to be looking. There is on component begin overlap. So this is where we're trying to get the player to overlap with the box in order to do something. So how do we do that? So if you drag out from this execution pen, you will want to cast this to our character. And so you'll type in cast to side scroller character. That is what our character is called in the side scroller template. So cast a side scroller character. And the actor that will be overlapping with is the box itself. So the box is the object that we'll be looking at. And for that, when this character interacts with the box, the next thing we want to do is execute another function, which is set active. So type in set active. All right, and right here I'm going to actually take this out. So keep the set active where target is an actor component. And what we want that target to be is the Interp2 Movement. So we're going to get that by control and dragging this out. And go ahead and connect this node to the target. So Interp2 Movement is how we'll be setting the location that will be moving the boat to and from with two locations that we will expose in the details panel. You want to make sure that you have this set to active, and we are going to be making a variable for the control points that you'll be using with this Interp2 Movement. So in variables, go ahead and create a new one, call it control points. And we want to change over in the details, we want to change that type. It's actually going to be a structure. And the structure is called interp control point, and the variable type container is actually going to be an array. So you can switch all of that over here in the details panel, and we now have this new variable control point, which will allow us to adjust our beginning and end control points. In order to see this variable exposed in the editor, you just have to click on this little eyeball right here, and once that eyeball is exposed, you'll be able to see that in the editor. Let's go ahead and compile and save. Okay, so let's go ahead and minimize our blueprint. And what I'm going to do is delete this blueprint out of the scene. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. We will be working on that respawn volume again. I did have it built in scene. So I have BP Boat 2. That is the blueprint we just worked on. I'm going to bring it into the scene here. And I'm going to do a little adjustment so it matches up with our player a bit. Rotate it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to move it into the player's pathway since they are only able to take that one path essentially from the side scroller template. And I'm going to drop the boat down so it looks like it's in the water a bit. There is another way to dynamically use blueprints to make the boat actually have physics for the purposes of this platformer demo, though we will just go over the Interp2 Movement option. So, speaking of the Interp2 Movement option, once we have this boat set up, As you can see, we have the player who can move, and you jump here and, well, nothing happens. So the way to change that is to go into our details panel and scroll down here so you can expose everything and go to Interp2 Movement on the blueprint itself. Here, I'll show you. We're working on this. And we have control points right here under control that we created and have exposed. We want to add 2 points there. So essentially we have the boat showing where it is currently, which our control point is 0, 0, 0. And we want to change this second control point to our ending point of this boat. So let me go ahead and find that by bringing the boat over to the other side where we'll be landing with the player. All right, and right up to the dock there. That should be good. And for the location, I'm just going to go ahead and copy the location here. Go back to Interp2 Movement, control point 2. I'm going to paste that information. Let's hit save. And all right, so when we hit play, what happens? Well, still nothing. So a couple of things we're going to do in the movement component or activation. We want to make sure it's not auto activate because we intend for the player to activate this boat in its movement. And the duration, instead of 1 second to get all the way across, let's go ahead and change that to 10 seconds, make it a little bit more enjoyable of a ride on the boat. And then let's go ahead and hit play and see what happens. So the player is running toward the boat. We have them jump on. They've interacted with the boat. We're moving from the first control point that we set at 0, 0, 0 to our second control point, which is going to be all the way at the edge here at the other dock. And here we go. We made it to the other side of the river. And let's restart that again. I want to show you what happens though if the player jumps into the water. Like if they missed, they're respawning. And so I do already have a respawn blueprint built, but let me go ahead and show you how that's done doing a respawn volume. Okay, in order to do that, we will want to make another blueprint class actor, and somewhat similar to what we've just done, we'll be going in and adding some components. First, I want to name this respawn volume 2. I do already have a blueprint of respawn volume, so BP underscore respawn volume 2. And I'll open that up. And we want to go ahead and add, similar to last blueprint we made, the box collider. And so we'll add the box here, and we can just leave it at this size, and you can adjust this based on wherever you might place this volume. We'll go ahead and make a volume that won't just work for this single level, but if you had checkpoints in a game, this would be something that you can refer to in order to place the actor from a point in which they hit this volume back to a specific point in the game. And so we also will need all right, so from that box, as we've done previously, let's compile and save here in the viewport and go over to our event graph. Let's just make some room down here. And from the box again, we're going to go back down to the bottom on component begin overlap. And so again, the player character is going to be triggering this box in order for something to happen. So we'll pull out the execution pin and cast this to our side scroller character again. And this is also again going to be referencing the actor is itself the box that we are using as the on component begin overlap. And what we are doing here is once the player lands on this box, the side scroller character, and they hit the water essentially, we want them to respawn probably right back at the beginning where they started on the first dock. So in order to do that, we need to make some variables. We'll make one variable called respawn transform. And this variable type is actually transform. And we want that to be exposed. So make sure you expose it here by clicking on the eye. And another variable that we will need to use is well, let's just start with that one. So after you cast to the side scroller character, you're going to want to set that actor's transform, which is where that actor will be placed after this event starts. So set actor transform, and our new transform is going to be this respawn transform. So let's control get this respawn transform. We plug that in here. And from there, that should respawn our character. Let's go ahead and see what happens first. Let's compile and save and minimize this here. And let's go ahead and place this respawn volume in our level. I hit G. And as you can see, it's just a tiny little box now, but you can adjust that how you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and like stretch it out here to be basically the length of the water. Put it right in the center. That should help me. So increase the length, put it to the end here, and then increase the width just a bit, although the player should be in one line. And the other thing I want to do is get that down right on the water so that it's not going to interfere with the other collisions. So there's the box here. As you can see, it's right on the bottom of the top of the water. And let's hit save and go ahead and try that out and see what happens when we play. So, players on the boat, they jump in the water. Oh, nothing happens. What that means is we actually need to open back up the blueprint, and we need this to be cast to the side scroller character, but we also need the transform target to be that side scroller character. Let's compile and save this. And another thing we will want to do is set our transform for the respawn volume. Let's get that respawn volume in again. Make sure we cover our whole area that the player will be interacting with. All right, and that's down on the water. Save. And for this respawn volume, we do want to get our respawn transform location. So we want the player's transform to bring them back to player start, which is right here by the player. So I'm going to copy the location of that transform, go back to the respawn volume, respawn transform, paste the location. I'm also going to copy the rotation of the player start and put that into the respawn transform, paste as the location as well. Hit save, and let's see if this works now. All right. Oh, yep. So they touched the water. They went straight back over here to the first dock where we started. And that's what we're looking for. Let's try it one more time and let's see what happens to that boat. Okay, so the boat's going. Well, I didn't make it with the boat, but wait, now the boat's not here. So we've got to do something to make that work. Let's check it out and see what we can do. Okay, for that we need to go back into the respawn volume blueprint. And let's talk about the boat. So on event begin play, this event is when the boat will be at its starting location. So let's go ahead and make a variable. Let's call it boat. All right, and the variable type is going to be an actor. And I'll go ahead and get that set up here. All right, and so now we do have the boat as the actor. I'm going to expose that variable as well. And then we'll make another variable, which is going to be the boat's transform, which is, again, kind of how we're moving that player back to a location. We want the boat to be able to do this as well. And let's set that as a transform variable type and expose it also. So on event begin play, we want to set our boat transform. Let's do that here. So that's where the initial boat transform is going to be happening. And let's get our boat. So control get this guy, bring it out. All right. And we want to get the location of the boat. So let's get the actor transform. And from there, this is how we're going to set the boat transform. All right, so compile and save this. And there's a couple of more things that we'll need to do in order to get that boat to return back to the location which it started. All right, so after we respawn the player, which is where we set the actor transform, we're going to want to get the boat actor. So get all actors of class. And from here, the actor class that we're looking for, we can actually use this drop down and just type in the BP for the boat. So we have BP boat 2. And make sure that's the name of our boat blueprint, BP boat 2. Yes, so it is the BP boat 2. All right, so after we get the BP boat 2 actor class, we're going to want to use the array to get a copy, and so that we can destroy the current boat. Essentially, we're going to respawn the boat when we respawn the player at their new location. So in order to do that, we need to destroy the boat. Destroy actor here. And so the target is going to be the copy of the boat. All right. And then we need to, after destroying the boat, we have to spawn it again. So we'll spawn the boat again. So spawn actor BP boat, spawn actor from class, and our class again is going to be, use this drop down for the class and just search for the BP boat 2. BP boat 2 is what we're using here. All right, and so where we want to spawn that new boat after we destroy the previous boat is going to be at the boat transform that we select. So let's get this boat transform and set the pin here to the spawn transform for the new boat. And everything else looks like it should work. So let's go ahead and compile and save, and let's see what happens when we go back to the editor. All right, so back in editor, we have our respawn volume still open in the details panel. So we have our respawn transform that has already been set. And then for boat, which we have exposed in what we just worked on in the blueprint, we do need to select our BP boat 2 and our boat transform at 0, 0, 0. That should be the starting location. Let's go ahead and try to play and see what happens. Oh, there's the boat. Ah, but it's not moving. Let's figure that out. Okay, so I'm going back into the boat blueprint for the BP Boat 2, and that looks good. Respawn. I did need to respawn an actor at the specified transform using the control point, so let's make sure that's all set up correctly here. Compile and save. Let's go back and try it in scene. Player jumps on the boat. They hit the water, and I have that little green bar on the top. As you can see, it's taking away, that's the player's life. Whenever they jump in, I did make a little UI element for life. And so every time they jump in, this will happen. So essentially, this is a setup with a basic background scene and one nice platform with a moving platform that returns to the location after the player collides with this box collider. They're able to ride this boat all the way to the other side, to the other platform, get off, and there we go. So that is some basic platformer, and I hope you enjoyed the video and looking forward to working with you more.